Welcome to this week's virtual Drasha. This week we have the incredible privilege to read Parshas Bo. And the Parsha is filled with so many incredible pieces and aspects. Of course, we read of the conclusion of the Makos, but perhaps most excitingly, we read about Yitzias Mitzrayim, the much anticipated, much awaited redemption, salvation, freedom, mitachas sivlos, from underneath the crushing burdens of Egypt. And as HaKadosh Baruch Hu prepares us to go out, he tells Moshe to convey to us a number of different things. There's an obligation for Bris Milah, and there's an obligation for Karban Pesach, the Paschal Lamb. And of course, part of the mitzvah of the Paschal Lamb was to go ahead and to repudiate the ideology or the theology, the idolatry of Egypt. The Egyptians worshipped the lamb. We take the lamb, we slaughter it in service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, take the blood, put it on the doorpost. Incredible. But there's one fascinating detail, which is that the Torah says you're supposed to consume the Karban Pesach bechipazon, in haste. In fact, again, you wouldn't have thought that this was supposed to be a celebratory meal. You would sit back, relax, right? Take off my shoes, loosen. No, Torah says you have to eat the Karban Pesach bechipazon with haste, with incredible haste. Meaning, you have to have your staff, your shoes, your belt, everything. You have to be ready to go. And of course, this is part of a bigger theme that redemption from Egypt occurs bechipazon. There's a sense of haste. There's a sense of being rushed. And what's fascinating is, servitude went on for 210 years, right? It's not like it lasted a couple of minutes. It went on for a long time, 210 years of servitude. Yet, when it's time for redemption, everything happens with incredible haste. Everything happens bechipazon, with speed, alacrity, zrizos. And the Medrash explains it's very simple. Klal Yisrael was close to being lost forever. There was an existential threat to Klal Yisrael. Chazal tell us there are 49 levels of tumah, 49 levels of impurity. Klal Yisrael was on the 48th level of tumah. And had they not been redeemed in that very moment, we're on the 48th, the second to last level of tumah. Once you get to 49, apparently Chazal teach us, you're lost. You're lost. You're irredeemable. You're unsalvageable. Klal Yisrael was on the 48th level of tumah. And had redemption waited just a few more moments, we would have been lost forever. And as such, every part of Yitzias Mitzrayim, every part of the Exodus, happens bechipazon, happens with incredible haste. And there's an obvious question. Slonim Rebbe says, Svakadosh Baruch Hu, why'd you wait so long? In other words, why wait for the Klal Yisrael to drop to the 40th level of Tumah? So you have to understand something. At the end of the day, so redemption doesn't occur because we deserved it, right? It's not the pshat that we have to reach a certain level of piety, and then once we reach the level of piety, suddenly it's time for redemption. Redemption occurred because HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised Avram Avinu that there was going to be a period of servitude, and then there was going to be a period of redemption. HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised Moshe Rabbeinu servitude and then redemption. So ask the Slonim Rebbe, if any way you know HaKadosh Baruch Hu that the time is going to come that you're going to have to salvage the people, you're going to have to save them, and you're not saving them because they really deserved it, you're saving them because you promised it to the Alter Zayda to Avram Avinu. So why are you waiting? Why are you waiting until they reach the 48th level of Tumah? They're almost to the point of no return. They're almost beyond existential repair. So why are you waiting? I redeem them at the 47th level of Tumah, the 46th. How about the 32nd? How about 36? 2 times high, right? Why are you waiting? Literally, again, until the 11th hour. The 11th hour, they're literally on the edge of the cliff. They're about to fall over into the abyss of irretrievable tumah. Why wait? And the Slonim Rebbe says something so incredibly beautiful. He says this to teach us a profound lesson. And the Rebbe gives the following mashal. He says, if you plant a seed in the ground, so again, even those of us who are not as well versed in agriculture know the dynamic. What happens? Something fascinating. You put the seed in the ground. The seed begins to decompose. Now, if the seed decomposes and rots the entire way through, nothing grows. But if a seed decomposes just enough, it unlocks the power of the seed. It unlocks the power to grow. It unlocks the power to blossom. And it's fascinating. So you have to decompose the seed to a certain level of decomposition so that ultimately it could flourish. Too much decomposition, seed is lost forever, nothing ever grows. Right amount of decomposition, the seed will flourish into something incredible. And says the Slonimer Rebbe, and I quote to you, he says, Kach gam haisa geulas Yisrael. This is how HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted redemption of Klal Yisrael to occur as well. Yitzirasam mechadash ka'am Hashem, our ability to be recreated as the nation of Hashem, haisamusnis bahaga'asam ad lematzav shala eder as kimat ein muchlat. HaKadosh Baruch Hu needed us. You see, there's an incredible message. There's a message in all of this. There's a message in Yetzias Mitzrayim. And what's the message? Hashem needed us to reach the moment of almost complete spiritual decomposition. A few more moments of decomposition and all would have been lost. But in that perfect moment, that perfect balance, we were decomposed enough to unlock the regenerative ability, the regenerative power, the spiritual power of Klal Yisrael. Just like the seed has to decompose to a certain level so that it could blossom, Klal Yisrael decomposed to the point that the spiritual energy of the Jew was unlocked. You see, says the Slonimer Rebbe, this was by design. What's the message HaKadosh Baruch Hu is trying to teach us? See, dear friends, we all reach different levels of spiritual decomposition over the course of life. And sometimes it happens that I feel like I'm just running into a brick wall in life. I'm not happy with where I am, but I feel such yeosh. I feel such a sense of despair. I feel so forlorn. I feel like, you know what, as they say, zelo oleh, nothing's going, nothing's moving, nothing's working. I feel like a decomposing seed in the soil of life. I'm not doing anything, I'm not growing, I'm not going, nothing's happening. And it's in those moments when I feel my personalistic seed is decomposing that at the end of the day, I feel like nothing's going to happen. But it's in those very moments of decomposition that the ability to blossom really comes out. You see, the great irony of life is that it's in the moments of life when you feel lowest that you have the ability to rise to the highest levels of accomplishment. Just like the seed, right? If you were watching that seed, right? The farmer puts the seed in the ground. And if you had your lens underneath the soil, what would you see? The seed is rotting. The seed is decomposing. The seed is falling apart. And you would look at that seed, and the truth is, it would look like a train wreck. You say, I can't watch it anymore. I can't watch it. The seed's just about to disappear into oblivion. And here's something amazing happens. Right in that moment before it fully decomposes, it begins to sprout. Something new begins to grow. Something new is created amidst the decomposition. That was the dynamic of Klal Yisrael. Hashem waited till we were on the 48th level of Tumah. We were practically a fully decomposed seed. But in that moment of decomposition, in that moment when we were so low, we begin to blossom into something so exceptional. And that's why everything is b'chipazon. Hashem was trying to teach us, in that moment that you feel lowest, in that moment when you feel like your personalistic seed has fundamentally decomposed, maybe it has, but guess what? The moment of decomposition represents the incredible opportunity for dynamic, magnificent, transcendent growth. The seed in the ground needs to decompose in order to grow. And sometimes in those moments of personalistic decomposition, that's when I have the ability to grow as well. That was the lesson that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was trying to teach us. That's why he waited till the last minute. Because, dear friends, what an incredible and profound lesson. When I feel low, the lowest of low, that's often the very moment when I have the ability to ascend to the highest of high. In that moment when I feel like my personalistic seed is just so decomposed, I'm so unhappy with who I am. I'm so unhappy with what I am. I'm so unhappy with the life that I'm not happy. I'm not in a good place. My seed is decomposing. If your seed is decomposing, that means you are on the cusp of magnificent blossoming and magnificent growth. That, says the Slonimer Rebbe, is the message of chipazon, the message of waiting to the last minute for redemption from Mitzrayim. This is the lesson that the Ribbon Shalom is teaching us. When you feel the lowest of the low, that's when you actually have the koach to ascend to the highest of the high. So we should be zilchem Yirtzeh Hashem. That halavai, we shouldn't let our personalistic seed decompose, right? That's the goal. That's the goal. I shouldn't allow myself to come to a point of decomposition. I should never allow myself to literally descend to the 48th level of Tumah. My goal is to lead a proactive life so that it shouldn't happen. I shouldn't sink to that level. But if I do, which for many of us, and when I say many of us, I'm talking to myself, happens more often than I'd like to admit, where I just descend, where I feel in a state of personalistic decomposition. In those moments, you think that you're supposed to give up. In those moments, you think that I'm supposed to feel forlorn, forsaken, and give up on myself, give up on life. And Yetzias Mitzrayim, says the Slonim Rebbe, teaches us just the opposite. In that moment when you feel like you are decomposing, in that moment when you feel like you are just disappearing, in that moment when you think your personalistic seed is disintegrating, know in that very moment, that's dafka when you have the capacity for transcendent growth. That is dafka when you have the ability to blossom. That is dafka when you have the ability to say, okay, now is when I turn it around. Now is when I leave my Mitzrayim. Because in life, when you feel the lowest of the low, is really the very moment when you have the opportunity to climb and to ascend to the highest of the high. Wishing everyone a good Erev Shabbos and a beautiful Shabbos Kodesh.